Good morning. Good morning. Happy Tuesday. Happy Tuesday. This is Mary May, and I am your leadership strategist. And before you make any decisions to start your day, have a cup of coffee, some leadership nuggets, some strategies, some coffee, some tea, or even a smoothie, and we can chat about how we're going to navigate this GPS and these strategies to make it happen. Good morning, Doc. Do you have your smoothie with you this morning? So good morning, good morning. So this is Tuesday morning leadership nuggets with Mary May, and looking forward to sharing some of the nuggets that I have prepared for you this morning. So I want to make sure that you have some transformational nuggets that get you in the position, get you prepared for how it is that you will approach your leveling up experience, because your experience is your unique footprint. So, how it is that you show up, how it is that you lead, all depends on always a 2 millimeter shift, a 2 millimeter hug, a 2 millimeter embracing of acknowledging, okay, well, I did look at this in one particular strategy or one particular lane or one particular perspective. However, am I open? Am I ready to receive something a little bit different and understand how it is that I can level up in my life overall? So when you're thinking about that, how are you positioned? What are you doing to pour into your cup so that you can understand what you need to understand and not get distracted? I know that was a mouthful, but we're going to peel it back today. So our focus nugget for today is strategy and leadership. What's working and what's not working. So, as we go through the conversation, if you find that, there's some things you want to just drop in the chat, engagement is definitely welcome, because we're just here for a quick little moment as you get ready or on your way in your commute, whatever your commute looks like in your morning. And the idea is that you will grab some nuggets that not only you can utilize, but maybe you think of somebody else in the course of this conversation. And if that is the case, feel free to share and invite them to join in the conversation as well, because as always, engagement is necessary, or is not nice, not necessary, but it's definitely welcome, in the sense that the way that we grow together, the way that we level up, is having an open space of communication. Because what good is a nugget if you can't take it nowhere and begin to implement it like right away? And that's just pretty much my metamorphosis in any way that I come to prepare for a workshop, for conversations, or whatever, is that you are able to walk away from that conversation, from that space, with at least one tool, if not many, that you could begin to implement right away. And so when I was in the course of the conversations this particular week, what came to the surface was, within my mastermind group that I'm a part of, someone posed a question. And in them posing this particular question, it made me recall curriculums and programs that I have created in building leadership, but then also just the simplest things that sometimes we overlook and don't consider when we are thinking about how it is that we win, how it is that we level up, how we have our various, levels of success. And as a leader, you know what you know. You have poured into, how it is that you build your skill, what you've done for education to get to that point, and you've been practicing it to get it through to mastery. But sometimes you get ripples in the matrix, and what that looks like on a day-to-day basis can vary from one person to the next. But the thing about when it's a mutual leader or a person who is in leadership that is thriving, then they're always looking from the perspective of, if the team is winning, that means leadership is winning. If it's a boss narrative, the boss narrative is like, I need to win and at the sacrifice of anybody who's around me. But as a leader, you're from a more collaborative and collective approach because you are looking at how it is not only that you influence others, but what is it that what is it that you are utilizing as a step by step, side by side strategy, whereas the boss perspective would be looking as far as team, like they're over you and down. So if you're the boss, you're always looking at, okay, people have to look up to me, they have to follow me, or I have to grab and steal their ideas and not give them any, credit for it. However, a leader is very inclusive, and not saying that they're not encouraging or doing different things. However, the leader is always the one that's inclusive overall. So back to like looking at strategy and leaning in from some of the skills that you may have and not really paying attention to where they grew from. And when you look at that, I want to couple our experiences when you think about from the framework today, from you as an individual, how it is that you develop strategy, and from what perspective have you nurtured and grew that strategy throughout your life, like to get to the point that you are in your career now. And so when we lean into that, we could possibly lean into how we have worked as a team, what teamwork has meant for us. We have looked at competition, we've looked at collaboration, but we could definitely use the framework of sports, and or like some kind of group activity that requires an organization, a strategy, a way to kind of peel back and look at what it is that the outcome that we want, and how we're going to lean into each other and build from how we grow from one conversation at a time. And so if you think about some of the teams, I'm on the East Coast, I'm in Philadelphia, so it's a whole different like strategy situation going on with the different teams and sports here in the city, that they're having some wins. And who doesn't want their favorite player, their favorite team to always have a win, because then you get to celebrate. But when you look at the individual who is the leader in that space, they're working from a group concept. They're working from a time invested concept. They have prepared, they've gone to practice, they've built that skill, they've gotten an education either from looking at previous workout sessions, previous videos, previous playbooks, and all of those different things that they need to look at in order to really position themselves so that they cannot encounter, the things that's going to block them. Or when they do encounter it, they're able to pivot, like, okay, plan A didn't work, let me look at plan B. But that metamorphosis of that transformation of what that inner conversation is for you is usually the game changer in determining what type of leader and what type of strategies are you implementing and activating on a day-to-day basis. Because if you are a team member, and I'm thinking about my younger years doing gymnastics and was in competition mode, but in my inner thought, I was at practice and I was running to jump on the vault. But in the middle of it, some type of doubt came, some type of second guessing came, some type of, am I capable, some doubt, some question that changed my strategy. I'm already in momentum and moving forward. However, I changed my inner conversation, changed my perspective, changed my thought, which made me jump up on the vault and not really do it successfully, because then I slammed on my back because of allowing that inner conversation to change me, knowing what it is that I know, what it is I knew about my capability, what it is I knew about my skill to execute and implement moving forward. So what are the inner conversations that you're having that is creating like a roadblock that's unraveling the outcomes for you in a leadership perspective? Are you listening to outside noise? Are you allowing like the things that you second guess, or are you building the things that you second guess to understand why does it create an unraveling? Why am I so wedded to the outcomes? Last week we talked about that perfection paralysis, where you become handicapped and frozen, where it's challenging to kind of say, okay, I'm going to execute in this particular way. And when I execute, I'm not going to have any roadblocks because I can visualize what my plan is. I can lead with the correct intentions of my plan, but be okay for the feedback that I'm going to learn from actually executing. But when we have that inner conversation, be it that we're in the middle of execution, like I was during that gymnastics experience, or we're not in the middle of actually executing something, but we allow those roadblocks to kind of unravel us, is usually where the strategy and the implementation and the execution tends to fall by the wayside. So if you are not taking the time to take a step back to do a mind dump or take that excessive feedback, you have to be able to say, okay, what is it that I could do differently? Because the roadblocks are there for intention, to build your bandwidth. The roadblocks are there to build your muscle and your bandwidth that you have for being in that sport. So if we have to do that for sports and we see the athletic ability of individuals who are winning, it doesn't just get there overnight. We have to actually do something and identify what way in which we're going to approach it. Because if we visualize the plan, and the plan that we executed and put into place had some holes in it, then if we're going to just keep going forward, then it's going to unravel and we're not going to be successful. However, if we try to figure out, okay, what resources can I introduce? Can I add on? Can I help myself to level up in my career? It requires discipline. It also requires for you to have a mindset shift or a mind shift that how I have prepared myself up until this point is not 100% solid. And either I am going to be open to asking for the feedback, or I'm going to be distracted by the roadblocks because the distractions are feeding into my lower self, my deficient mind frame, myself about me that doesn't know that I can do it. But leaders, you know what you know. You've gotten to this place to be in the conversation and at the table to show your skill set unapologetically. So the thing that comes in the place of it is that inner conversation stops you from executing. And that inner conversation is when you have the discipline to go to practice, to study the skills, to implement something, to build your team, and someone gives you an alternative idea or perspective to what you thought was the best way, and you take it to a sensitive aspect where you're no longer able to execute, because now you're sitting in a space of overthinking and wondering, okay, well, were they just giving me that feedback for general, or were they saying something about me? You begin picking up the phone and calling, asking for validation in other places, when really the real thing is the reflection in the mirror and that daily divorce of self, and just saying, okay, I am feeding into the distractions. I've been told that the distractions are to my deficient self. So if I'm falling into the distraction that usually takes me off of track, then I need to figure out how to get back on track. And so those inner thoughts are you playing the skill set in which you have? And are you opening yourself to the opportunity where these distractions do not take you off your square? And so periodically, you have to have that authentic approach, looking at how open are you to implementing and executing what can get you to scale up. And definitely it has to be okay for you to ask for clarification, because when you are a leader, again, being open to that feedback, the other part about it is that because you struggle or have challenges, I don't want to say struggle, I don't want to speak that narrative into your life. We got to be mindful of the words that we say to ourselves. it's best to be open to the feedback that you can get from other people by just suggesting, okay, this is what I understand, and before I begin to do a strategy to execute or implement what the next thing is, I want to be sure that I'm on the same page. I want to understand that we have the same intentions for the outcome, because when you do that, then you understand that, okay, now I know what the outcome is. I know how I will approach it, or how we as a team will approach it, and begin to level ourselves up accordingly. Because it will take the action of, really, really moving your thought clear with clarity forward, but with support. And sometimes that support is that open conversation to asking for the feedback. One of the things too is that when you are really navigating how to implement a strategy, you have to really know what your sport is. You have to really know what, and when I say your sport, you have to know what it is that you need to move around. Like, what is it? What curtain is holding you back? What limits do you have that may be distracting you or keeping you in the handcuffs at that particular place? So when you are preparing for the project or your next step, are you going into it with the mind frame of playing chess, or are you going into it with the mind frame of checkers? Now, there's some similarities with those two games. However, the strategy and being successful are very, very different. And so you have to know which lane of genius that you will pull in from, and which skill set that is the outcome that's mutually understood and mutually agreed between you and whomever project that you're serving, or whatever outcome that you're looking for. So it's best to be open and not to get caught up in your inner thoughts or your inner conversation. It's best to be open to that feedback for clarification. Because if you don't ask for clarification and you begin to execute, and you put in all of this work, all of these hours, all of this intention for something that is not working, is not giving the outcome that someone is asking for, you're going to go back to encountering those roadblocks and that unraveling outcome, or those roadblocks and those challenges, like where you're like, okay, but I worked all these extra hours. Don't they see me? I did all of this practice. I reviewed all of the old tapes. I reviewed my notes. I did everything. What is the part that's missing? The part that's missing is that you possibly, when you look at how you defined your strategy, it didn't have a plan of action. It didn't have a plan of action or a step-by-step process that was designed to do the overall goal altogether. And so if your transformation of how you understood the task, as well as how you understand your internal dialogue that you have. So the outside voice and then the inside voice, when they're at battle and they're confronting each other side by side, or whatever that looks like for you. If you become paralyzed from that internal dialogue in your transformation, you will always come to a certain point in a project, in the conference room meeting, in the am I qualified for the level of experience, that you will encounter you personally unraveling, but then also the roadblocks that you're going to say, the place in which I'm at, the job has a glass ceiling, and it has that glass ceiling, so I'm not able to move up. The challenge with that is we're all able to move up, because the only glass ceiling that really, truly, authentically exists is the one that's between your two ears, the 6 inches, your brain, and the ability that you have that inner dialogue, allowing those conversations of that inside voice to have more influence and more traction over your growth than anything else. Good morning, Miss Nat. Thank you for joining us this morning. Um, and so when you are reviewing the tapes and preparing yourself for like what that next game is, what that next strategy is, you are saying, okay, you know what? Let me move out of the old way that I've done this, or let me consider that there's another alternative in how it is that I can be successful in what is actually happening. You are eliminating that option of the perfection paralysis where you're not having a peace in your progress. And you're spending way more time on the DIYs, the do it yourself project, than is actually required and or necessary. So when you begin to look at how your internal dialogue is overpowering you and informing your active discussions and strategies and so forth like that, you really have to begin to look in the mirror and say, how am I contributing and in my own way? How am I contributing and creating my own glass ceiling? How am I contributing and just not being able to move that needle, that 2 millimeter shift, because that internal dialogue has more influence in you as the leader that you are than the external factors or the external conversation of who and what is navigating that penmanship of leveling you up. So I'm going to say one of my internal keys to success is being flexible to shift or pivot as a leader. Absolutely. You have to know when to make that shift. That's actually the next thing that I had. Like, when do you know when is a shift actually needed? So you know when the shift is actually needed when you are in a continual battle on a day-to-day basis, probably moment by moment basis, project by project, where that the internal factors is really outweighing how it is that you show up for everybody else that sees you, and then also everybody else who experiences you as the leader. What is their assessment? What is their experience? What is, like, how do they see your organization skills? How do they see how it is that you lead? How confident are you in your space of authority when you are navigating what, however you're navigating and leading this particular project? Remember, how you play chess is very different than how you play checkers. The same way that if you are a runner and you're going to run and prepare for a, say like a marathon, a 10K or something like that, you can't just wake up and say, I'm going to run this marathon. You have to prepare your body. You have to build that muscle. You have to build up your strength and that skill. And as the leader for you in that running, in that marathon, you have to realize that it's going to take strategy. It's going to take the opportunity to understand what is my biggest challenge with the internal and the external factors, and how can I remap and understand my strategy. Strategy is your approach. Strategy is how you will be successful. Strategy is, how do you look at the start of your day? Are you doing your success ritual in the morning and in the evening? And is the evening looking at your wins? Society has us at a default where we look at everything that we didn't get done and looks at our losses and so forth like that. However, when you are leveling up and you're confronting yourself in this internal dialogue, the inner voices in your strategy, that's when you realize that the shift is actually needed for you to parallel and look at how you can turn the noise down from thinking that, oh, it's a marathon on Saturday. Today is Tuesday. Sure, I'm going to go ahead and put my bid in and run. No, you're going to collapse and your body is not going to be prepared because you have not worked out or like built your stamina up or did anything that's going to help you be a leader in that space. So if you parallel that to how it is that you have a project or a speaking engagement or something that is coming up, if you are not positioning yourself to show up, and when I say show up, I mean how it is that you present yourself, how it is people receive you, how do they understand your intentions and your language and your feedback, what it is that you're offering. If it's not clear and you haven't asked for that clarification that we talked about a moment ago, then you are demonstrating and showing the energy of chaos. You are demonstrating and showing the energy of that you don't have the strategy and the skill set for me to consider. If I'm the leader overseeing and I'm the one with the pen, that you are prepared for that 2 millimeter shift to level up and be in a different role or take on more skills or take on more tasks, because the distractions that keep you in that deficient mindset have more influence over you as a leader than your ability to grow. One of the comments is saying, as a leader, you must also build your endurance, a way to stay steady en route to your path. It is not a sprint. And it actually, made me think about like one of the quotes, people say it's a marathon, it's not a sprint. The marathon is that you're in for the long haul. You're in for whatever bumps and bruises, but every bump and bruise is not a negative thing. So remember, you're constantly in that internal dialogue, recognizing that your shift comes with growing into this new you and not allowing the perfection paralysis of wanting it to be perfect to have you at the stopping point. Because if you never start, you never try, you don't know what it is that you could learn from every experience and building yourself up. So it's a marathon. Marathon takes skill set. It takes awareness. It takes knowing what it is that you know. It takes understanding the education that you have. And it also takes mastering what that's going to look like on a day to day basis. Because as you lead effectively, unapologetically, and standing your authority, you begin to lead and have the energy around you that you're no longer working from a deficient mindset. And so that deficient mindset requires you to kind of consider and authentically look at how it is that you like, because strategic leadership is like how it is that you have the ability to not only influence yourself, but influence the others in regards to enhancing the overall outcome of what it is that we're trying to do, either as an organization, as a team, and as an individual. Because being able to maintain your success level, you have to be able to really, really understand that inner conflict, that inner conversation, that voice that's happening for you from a different perspective, and how the roadblocks may be taking you on detours that's unnecessary and robbing you of time, is robbing you of mind space. It's probably costing you some internal conflict with your health, like maybe a migraine, all different types of different health complications. You probably are looking at those health complications as something separate and as a distraction, but really is letting you know that, okay, hey, I need you to pay attention to me because I might need you to hydrate. I might need you to work out a little bit differently if we're going to do this marathon. I need you to prepare differently, ask for other skill set and clarification so that you can lead unapologetically and authentically. But for your execution process, I'm going to need you to be present. I'm going to need you to allow yourself to level yourself up from a marathon that is not a sprint, that you have prepared for, and it shows through in your language and your productivity, that you're not robbing yourself of anything, and that you're always willing for that feedback of putting yourself in a huddle and taking that conversation or taking that resources or understanding when a strategist or a coach, whatever third party resources that you have accessible to you, if it's professional development, be open to the professional development. Don't look at when the boss or the leader says to you, I think you need to go to this particular training because it'll help you build this skill set. One of the things that we do from that deficient, detoured, roadblock thought process is if they say that we got to go to this training or they suggest the training that we feel that we have mastery in, they may see a 2 millimeter shift that we don't. And instead of getting caught up in your feelings and in your thoughts, you have to actually say, okay, what can I gain from this? Not from a deficient standpoint, but what can I gain from this? How can I level up? How can I understand that this change, this investment that I'm going to make, either be it in a resource outside of you, professional development, a coach, a strategist. However, the growth is going to not only impact me individually, but it's going to impact all of those that I encounter. So when you choose to strive better, it definitely comes with that decision of choosing you, and that the change starts the day that you accept that position. And the position is always evolving because you're always evolving. Remember, the glass ceiling is only in the mind. It's only in how it is that you feed into it, or how you fall into the things that's working for you or not working for you. So when you are leading by example, you're showing your confidence as a leader. This is the things that you do. You lead by example. You praise and motivate others. You communicate the objectives early to ensure success, not only for you but for everybody involved in the project. You allow others to speak first. The microphone doesn't have to always be that you're speaking, because then that is being like a dictator, which falls into that boss mode. And you don't want to be the dictator. You want to be able to allow others to speak first. You want to hear the feedback and offer feedback, good, bad, or indifferent, and allow them to identify and address where it is that they're dissatisfied or need additional support for whatever reason. Because as the leader that you are always inspiring not only yourself, but those around you to be great. Because if they're great, then it's a reflection of how it is that you're going to move forward. And so, how it is that you choose to move forward is how it is that you choose to practice and get yourself ready for that next level, that next experience, that how it is that you've allowed learning from the falls, like I mentioned earlier, that gymnastics fall that I did, where I end up executing differently than how I had started because of that internal conflict that I began to have. That internal conflict cost me something. But in the fact that it cost me something, the injuries, the time, whatever, I also learned that once you start the execution process and you have full momentum going forward, you can't change your mind, or you shouldn't change your mind in the middle of that momentum. You need to learn from how it is going to be executed. And sometimes when we have those other thoughts and we have that outside feedback, those external factors, we begin to allow ourselves to get stuck in the like undermining ourselves. And as the strategist, you can learn how to, one of the strategies you can learn is how to mind dump when necessary, how to clear your thoughts and get everything out that you need to get out, and to learn how to go from being locked and loaded to going into unknown territory, because you know that on the outcome, not only will you have a new skill set, others who experience you will experience you differently. And so you have to know how it is that your confidence is coming through you being disciplined. It's coming through you completing different things. It's not coming from you contemplating, thinking, oh, what about if I try this? Or what about if I try that? Try something. Trying something is better than being in that perfection paralysis on being wedded to the outcome. Can't be wedded to the outcome and still expect to level up unapologetically. So when you're thinking about that, you have to think about in your day, when you're like mapping out what it is you're going to get done for the day, are you feeding into distractions, or are you really maximizing the mastery of your skill, the mastery of your practice, and the education that you have to get yourself to where it is that you want to be? Because the glass ceiling only exists when you're entering a game of checkers and you're using chess moves, or even vice versa. You're at the wrong game, at the wrong table, at the wrong strategy field. You got to be able to pivot. You need to be able to understand that change is not a curse. Change is you being able to level up with the strategy necessary, where your plan, you're able to visualize it, you're able to plan it out, you can lead with it. You can lead with it, or if you're not present, your team can lead with it, because you are not the it factor for every execution or everything that's motivated. But in order for it to be done effectively, You have to be clear in how it is that you communicate it out. So that would be my nugget for today, as far as you being clear in your strategies on how it is that you move forward, how it is that you choose to lead, and how it is that you understand your role and influence in variety of different situations. The strategic leadership is pulling that curtain back, understanding what you need to understand that's distracting you from moving forward. If you look at yourself as the leader from the team or the leader for yourself individually, are you open to feedback? Are you open to the criticism that may help you level yourself up in a sense of, oh, are you in a sense of that you know what it is that you need to do differently. But then looking also at that person in the mirror and your thoughts that you're having, are you being authentic in the approach of how it is that you and how you want to be seen, how you want to be elevated, how you want to be promoted and not overlooked. If you're in the indecisive and you're going back and forth with the struggle of the internal and the external conversation, then you have to really recognize that which factors are important to you the most. What information is more important to you the most? Winning and executing, making that shift that you need, or are you willing to just continue with the DIY and spending all of the additional time that someone else has already gone through with you, or that you have done it this way for so long, you're going to continue to do it that same exact way. So you have to recognize, when is it time for you to make that shift of allowing the internal factors to outweigh the external factors. External factors is going to get you to the outcome that's going to get you to whatever, if it's a position that's going to have you with higher pay, if it is the freedom of whatever shifts that you need to make in your life, you have to make that decision to choose that strategic leadership is the way that you want to move. And so that's my nugget. We went a little bit over today, but that's my nugget for you this morning in regards to, just leveling up. And so if there's anything that I have shared or that you thought can either benefit yourself or benefit someone else, feel free to, check out my website, that you are able to grow from being passed over to promoted and well paid, or promoted and leveled up to whatever it is that you want to do at workwithmarymay.com. And then, as we do each and every Tuesday, as well as other times throughout the week, we have our Tuesday nuggets with a cup of coffee or tea. And for some of the people who join us, they have smoothies. So we welcome that too. Whatever your morning vice is, engagement is necessary. Me being able to pour into your cup is necessary. You being able to pour into my cup, because we still learn from each other, and being able to strategize and implement with execution and conviction is the overall goal. Are you living life on your own terms, the way that you would want to live? If not, give me a call so that we can make that blueprint shift and change for you. Otherwise, I hope that you are safe in your travels and that all goes well for you. And I'll talk to you soon. You take care.